variables, right? So variables are like names. Variables are like names of people like you and me. They just point to the actual object in memory. Let me quickly show you how exactly, it would look like. Let's just quickly have a small visualization. Let's say x is equals to, 56, right? X is a variable here, if you understand correctly, right? X is not really the integer 56 itself. X is like a pointer. If you see on the right hand side, here you can see that x is pointing to an actual object, which is an integer with a value 56 in memory. Okay, so this is what a variable is. Variables are not really storing things, they are pointing to an actual thing which exists in memory. Okay, if you want to name, because variables are names, right? But the thing is that in Python there are rules that you have to follow if you want to create names in Python. So one of the rule is that it can only contain letters, alphabets, digits, and underscores. So you cannot really have fancy names like how Elon Musk names his children. You cannot have that, but yeah, these are the rules that you have to follow. This is what it can contain, and it must start with a letter or underscore, right? So what this basically means is, we'll quickly see an example. So if I want to have a variable name, I cannot start it without a letter or an underscore. For example, a digit is accepted to be, inside a variable name, but inside a name, right? Or a variable, but it cannot start with 8 itself. For example, I cannot say 8p equals to, let's say, 56. This will give me a syntax error. But if I try to make it p8, okay, and then I give it 56, this will work. Okay, so basically this does not work. You have to start it with either a letter or an underscore. You can have it with an underscore as well. Like this, you can say p8 or maybe 8p equals to 56, and this is also accepted because you are starting it with an underscore. Now, another rule that you have to follow while naming would be to that it cannot use Python keywords. What are Python keywords? Python keywords are things where Python has reserved those words for something else. For example, this is the Python code that I showed you. You can see that there is like false, for, if. They are all dark green in color here, which is actually representing that these are like Python understands some meaning out of these things, right? So you cannot really use these Python keywords in naming. For example, you cannot really say 4 equals to 56. Okay, if you try to say it, it will again give you a syntax error. Okay, so just for example, you cannot use things like this. Okay, another rule, which is that it is case sensitive in nature, which I hope you understand, which basically means I mean, M1 versus M1 is different. Okay, so for example, if I say M1 equals to maybe 2020 and M1 equals to maybe 2021, they are two different things. For example, if I look at value of this and if I look at value of this is going to show me two different things. Okay, so it is case sensitive in nature. Okay, so this is how you name a variable. Now, moving on to interesting topic, which is data types. Now, what are data types? Data types are like, you have different kind of containers for storing different things. For example, you have a different container for storing milk versus if you want to store something else, which is not liquid in nature. You will not store it in bottle. You probably will store it in a different type of container, right? So similar to that, when you are storing data, you choose the data type. Okay, that this kind of data should be stored in this type of data type, right? So let's start with int. Int is basically whole numbers, right? I hope everybody knows what whole numbers are, right? So 1 2 3, oh, 1 2 3, -1, -2, -3. A question, homework question, whether I should include 0 here. Okay. All right. After that, we have float, which is basically decimal numbers, right? And decimal numbers would be 2.5, 2.3, 3.0, Remember, 3 and 3.0 are two different things. Minus 6.7 and then minus 5.4, right? Question here, whether 0.0 a float or a integer. Okay, look it. Another would be Boolean. Booleans is basically the kind of data that we had here, right? Which is basically representing, two of the states, either 0 or 1, right? Or basically, let's say either false or true, either failed or passed. So that kind of data is Boolean. So if you want to store that kind of data, you choose between these. There are only two values for this, which is true and false. Another one is a string. String is basically a sequence of characters. Okay, sequence of characters, which is like, for example, you have Python, right? And you can have homework, right? With the wrong spelling and maybe with a correct spelling and a space, right? Whatever you want. So the sequence of characters, and this sequence of characters can contain anything which you have in your keyboard, and even the other Unicode characters that you see, which are probably not in your keyboard, right? So yeah, at least these are the things that you can see in your keyboard. So use those, right? And you use double quotes or single quotes, or triple quotes to, contain the characters. But those double quotes or triple quotes or single quotes are not part of the string. For example, if I ask you what are the characters of string, these are the characters of string. These double quotes are not included in that. All right. So moving on to the next one. The next one is a list. List is basically, an ordered collection. Okay, ordered collection of heterogeneous elements here, right, which are editable. So, for example, you can actually use the previous ones which we have, so far written. So I'm using these square brackets here, right? These square brackets contain, that list of collection, or let's say the collection of elements that I'm having here. So 1, 2, and I can say minus 35, or I can say minus 5.6, right? And then I can say 0.0. Interestingly, nobody knows what this is for now. And then you can use true, false, and then you can use strings like Python, right? You can use homework, right? And then maybe you can use something else, like a list itself, right? Happy holidays. Okay, so not only this, you can actually include other type of data types also, which we are going to study after list, and then I can show you that you can actually put them here. The important part about list is that it is ordered in nature. When I say ordered, it basically means that I will be able to know who is sitting at the first position, who is sitting at the second position, who is sitting at basically nth position, any position that I give a number, right? So that's what ordered means, and it also means that, if one is sitting at the first position and second is sitting at the position, they have a position, a stable position, a fixed position, right? If you want to change it, of course you can change it, but you always know that, okay, who is sitting at which position. Okay, so they are ordered in nature, they are heterogeneous, it can contain mix of elements, right, mix of data types, and they are editable in nature. I can go and change a specific value. I can say that, hey, I want to change this Python to Java. I can do that. Okay, another one which is very similar to list, that's tuple. Tuple starts with round brackets. You can contain similarly same type of data. For example, I can just, copy paste this to show you that, a tuple can contain exactly same data. The difference comes that it is unchangeable. I'm using the word unchangeable because I believe we are all beginners here, let's say, and then we want to use a simple term as we can, so that we, get things in our mind instead of fancy words like immutable, mutable, right? All right. So this is changeable, okay, but this is not changeable. Tuple is not changeable, unchangeable. So which means that I cannot convert or change this Python to Java. Okay. And other thing is, this is also ordered. Both of them are ordered and can contain hetero. Okay, hetero type of elements. So I'm just writing it here, ordered and hetero. And the next thing that I want to take is going to be, sorry, yeah, all right. So the next thing that I want to take would be dictionary. Dictionaries are like key value pairs. You use curly brackets to denote them. Key value pairs basically means they are pairs, right? I mean, for example, you have a lock and a key. right? I mean, for one look, let's say you have one key, right? Similar to that, you have key value pairs, and dictionary you have already seen. I will just copy that here, which is basically this is a dictionary. Dictionary is a data where you have a key, right? And corresponding to those keys, you have values. Okay. Moving on to very similar one. We will see that how sets and dictionaries are related in future session, but sets are also created with curly brackets, but they are unordered. First of all, different from list tuple. Okay, they are unordered in nature, right? And they always store unique values. So for example, I can only store like Mohit and Rohit. But if I repeat Mohit here, even though I'm using double quotes, but the characters are same, right? The first and the last elements here in this set are exactly same. They are the same string, right? So when I actually execute it, you will not see it again. So for example, let me just quickly show you this, right? So if I run this set, maybe let's say this, right? And if I print it again, you will see that the one of the Mohit is gone, let's say, right? In first place, it was not even, you know, inserted into the set, because when you run this specific cell, that is the time when you are trying to create this in memory and put a reference x to that thing in memory, right? So it was not even the duplicate element was not even inserted, so I can say it has unique items. Okay. The last one that I want to take today is none. None basically means represents no value. Okay, it represents no value basically. Okay, so these are the data types which you can start with. Later on you can realize that there are others also, right? But these are the most fundamental ones which with which you can actually go and deep dive into Python, right? In the next session we are going to see how actually these data types are stored in memory, right? How variables or names, let's say, right, are pointing to those, right? And one question would be, let's say, how many objects gets created if I try to create a dictionary maybe like this, right? So see you in the next one. Thank you.